G'day, I'm Kate Growaruck. How are you? I normally do hiking videos, but at the moment I'm doing these little recaps of Alone Australia, and this is episode 6. And where are we? Day 10, and 5 people remain. We start out with Mike and his amazing kayak. How cool is that thing? And we get the little flashback to where he got his pot handle and he, burnt those holes in his tarp and then strung it all out. And it looks phenomenal. It's an engineering stroke of genius. And then he pops it in the water and then boom, it so sinks. And oh man, my heart just went out for him there. And huge credit to him, because I thought, oh geez, it didn't work, but boom, he gets out, he works it out, sorts it out, boom, and off he goes. And so that was pretty impressive to see how quickly he turned it round and just kept plugging away. And then he jumps in the kayak, goes for this big paddle, and he's talking about, I guess, some of the exciting parts of having a kayak is fishing, but also exploring his area. Then we see Mike get out there, he's exploring his area. He talks about having like an ab workout just because of the configuration of the kayak. And yeah, I think that's where there's almost this turning point there we see with poor Mike. And, he explores and he's like, there isn't anything, I certainly struggled with this too. I was like, what's around this corner? What's around this bay? Is there something here? Is there something there? And you think, just around this corner I'll find the promised land of beautiful vegetation that I can just nibble on and have a sweet treat. And it was a very challenging environment. I think that's hard for Mike to realise. He's working so hard to make a go of this. And just at every turn, it's like blocking him. And I can't believe he's maintained that stamina of like 10 days, no food, just banging out these crazy projects. There's this scene where he comes along shore and he's like, chuck that out. And he sort of, even the way he speaks out the side of his mouth, he's like, flicks the rod out of the boat. And I think that's where you're just like, you can see the frustration building in him, and absolutely rightly so. He is working his guts out. And there's only so long that, I think a person can keep cracking it, like incredible, like MacGyver stuff, the canoe, the traps, the fishing rod. The one thing I definitely know about Mike is he's a smart guy and he's competitive and he's going to keep coming up with ideas. I don't think we see him there toying with the idea of like, we just sit there and don't do anything, or we just keep plugging away at these ideas. But I really don't think he's one to just sit there in his tent and like meditate all day. So I'm really interested to see how he keeps going, and hopefully he gets some, protein happening pretty soon. Then we flick over to Gina, and she's happy because it's this beautiful, beautiful day, and she's had her first nude sleeping. So she's managed to insulate her little nest enough that she can just sleep nude in her possum quilt. Then Gina talks about how much weight she's lost, and this is distressing and an interesting one. Of 10 kilos she estimates, because we don't know how much we're losing. 10 kilos in 10 days. That is shocking and scary, and that huge loss of weight prompts her to get into the food. And so she goes and harvests some sausage, and she's trying to harvest, I think she's trying to grab a bit more than just the little end bit so that she can get sort of a hearty meal and boil the crap out of it and eat it up. But and she uses a rock salt. That's wild. So one of her 10 items is a chunk of salt. So you don't often see the salt addition in Alone. I've seen it a couple of times in the US series, but yeah, interesting 10 items. I can't wait to see a full list of people. I think if we watch closely enough, we might be able to assess what people brought. She actually ends up vomiting, and I can't even imagine. At least it's a nice sunny day. That's the only thing I was thinking when that was happening. I was like, there's nothing worse than like a rainy day. You're like laying on the ground vomiting and it's cold and wet. So at least it's a sunny day. Hopefully she does get some food happening. It looks like in the shorts she's eating something else. Chris, we see him super happy at the start of this episode. He's going to go yabby hunting. He's got this beautiful little waterfall and stream near his site. I'm quite jealous of that. It looks just so amazing, a little wonderland. And yeah, it doesn't have much luck with the yabbies. And then we flick to him in his tent sitting around, and we hear a helicopter, and it really triggers Chris. I think this is a really powerful piece of television, and it's not something that I don't think many of us in Australia have ever witnessed. And it's so brave of Chris to keep the cameras rolling and for SBS to show it. He has what he describes as a PTSD panic attack. And it's caught on camera, and I'm getting chills just thinking about it now. And we see the emotions of Chris, and we see his struggle, and it's challenging to watch, and it's so powerful, and it's moving. You know, we hear the term PTSD and PTS thrown around a lot, but I personally have never witnessed someone having a panic attack, and my best friend had PTSD, and I guess he hid that from me. He didn't, like, he talked about it, but I've never witnessed it. And so to witness it is powerful, and it really hammers home the impact of these horrific environments we're asking people to be involved in. And then sometimes the lack of care that goes hand in hand with that. They come back and, you know, they're no longer needed, and they're no longer able to provide their service. And yeah, it can be a really challenging thing, and we need to do better. So absolute respect for Chris for sharing that with us. It always seems when Chris is having the hard times, you know, thinking about leaving or something like that happens to him, and boom, he catches a fish, and he is killing it with the fish. I think that's his third fish or something, and really good to see him get a bit of protein there and win and ending it on a high note. And interestingly, he sort of ends, well, that they end his episode, and I'm not sure if they're just setting us up for, you know, to like a cliffhanger, but he starts to talk about wanting to leave on a high note and not leaving, you know, perhaps from a low point. So I'm not sure if they're preparing us there for something to happen with Chris, but hopefully not, because it is beautiful to watch him. Then it flicks to me, and it's quite interesting coming after Chris's scene. I sit there and be like, oh, helicopter coming to get me. And it's so interesting to see that contrast of PTSD response to, you know, someone who's lucky enough to not have PTSD. Then I go on to talk about these cool noises that I've been hearing at night, and I start to investigate these. And so I go for a bit of a walk around the back of my shelter and start to look at the animal tracks and look at the scat and the poo, and trying to work out which poo's poo. And there's like, I think there's Bennett's wallabies, there's paddy melon poo, there's ringtail possum poo. And it shoots to me talking about the beauty of the landscape and how amazing it is to always keep learning about nature and the different landscapes and different habitats. And I really did love that about this environment. I've never spent time in anything like that. And while it was harsh and I didn't enjoy the aspects of the man-made lake, it was beautiful to dig a little deeper and find the beauty. There's this line where I talk about absorbing the beauty of nature and loving the experience. And for me, this is a longer game than just the survival experience. This is a life-changing experience. And that was something that was so important to me. I didn't want to just go out there for the pure competition of it. I literally wanted this to be a life-changing experience, and it certainly has been. I love that they showcased that I wasn't there to hunt possums, and that's not how I interact with nature, and that I was proud of that stance. And I did wonder while I was out there, would I get really hungry and just think, okay, I'll just eat one little possum. And so it's interesting at this point that I'm, you know, still sticking to that and super proud of that. And so that's really, it was lovely to watch that scene. And at the end of that scene, you can hear me sort of choke up a little bit and tear up a little bit, and certainly watching it, absolutely did again. It like hit me like an arrow. I'm getting emotional now, but that's the joy of this experience, I think, is that you have time. I feel so busy in my normal life, and you have time to sit there and ponder and reflect on your life. And yeah, I think if I'm ever feeling strange, I can just watch that scene and just slow down. And whew, yeah, it's tough to watch, but it's beautiful. Then it flicks over to, I think, in the middle of the night, and I go out to actually explore these noises that I'm hearing. And boom, I get them on the camera, and it's a ringtail possum family, and there's 3 of them, and there's my little, like, I sort of, imagine it's like my little family at home. So the Elsie, me, and Juno, and those little possums were my friends. And I know that sounds a little bit kooky, but they'd pretty much come out every single night unless it was hammering with rain, and I could hear them in the trees and talking to each other, and it was just beautiful having them there. It is such a privilege to be able to share this experience with everyone, and to have such an amazing community, and that's not lost on me, especially having experienced, being out there on my own. And I definitely grew strength while I was out there by thinking about my beautiful community, and I did a lot of meditation, and there was this amazing meditation that I did for more than, it was at least an hour it would take, if not more. I'd think about every single person in my world, like my work colleague's husband, and I'd send love. And this is I'm not a super meditation person in my normal life, but I'd send love to each and every one of those people. And from that, I drew that love, and I could feel that love that they had for me, even though I was there, and I knew that was only a temporary thing. And that was really powerful for me to, I guess, stay happy while I was out there, even though I was craving that community and those humans. So there's this beautiful scene, obviously, with me and my possum family, and then we flick to Mike once again in these good, little edits. And he's like, he hears the possums too, obviously a different area. And he's like, I'm actually feeling quite hungry. So it's just I love the contrast of that. And obviously, all respect to Michael, you've got to eat. And he starts to build a possum trap. From the sounds, it sounds like he's got ringtails too. We're allowed to hunt brushtails, but not ringtails. So it'll be interesting to see. It'd be quite frustrating if you do have success hunting, but then you actually trap a species that you have to let go. I find it really interesting with Michael. In some shots, his shelter looks really advanced and like a cabin. And then other shots, you see him sitting basically on a tarp with nothing much happening. So maybe it's partly in construction. I can't wait to get a really good look at his shelter. This is the first time we see the softer side to Michael, and him missing his family and thinking about them, and starting to wonder about how long will this competition go on for. And I think the human condition, it struggles with the unknown. And I think early on he said something like 90 days, but in this sequence we see him saying something like 30 or 40 days. And I thought that was interesting to see, that chopping. Once you get in that environment, you realize the lack of plants, the lack of protein. You do start to pare back. You're like, oh yeah, I'll do this, I'll do that. And your big ideas start to become fade away, and the reality of that landscape starts to hit home. And we see Michael pray to his family, and I think he captures something beautiful here, that we're all thinking, that we're hoping that our family are safe and happy, and that feeling of hoping that they're okay in your absence. Really excited to see his journey and see if he catches the possum. And that's it. We end up, I think, day 11. So we only actually do 2 days in this whole episode. There's a lot going on. Few sort of hints at people getting frustrated there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next episode. Thanks for watching.